was horrible. This time last week, I was beginning to come down with achy pains in my abdomen, difficulty in soreness and touching my rib cage, and it got progressively worse. By Wednesday of last week, I couldn't breathe, and I had this sharp shooting pain all the way through me. Now, I had been away. My wife and I went up to Boston, and we had ate rich foods. And anyway, I felt like, well, at first I wasn't sure what it was. I knew I just couldn't breathe, and it hurt like the devil. And I thought about, I'm going to go to the emergency room. So when I went home and started looking up and thinking about what I had learned in med school, and I remember seeing people with acute pancreatitis in the hospital, where they put them in the hospital, they leave them there, they put them on a no diet at all. They'd have fluids only, and they'd keep them off of eating for 2 or 3 days, sometimes at a time, and keep them in the hospital somewhere between 5 to 10 days. And I thought, I don't think I want to do that, because I'm supposed to be back at work in the morning. This was Wednesday, so I thought, well, I'm just going to fast and not eat, drink plenty of water. So fortunately, that was the right mix of things that I did, and I did finish work on Thursday. I continued to fast and not eat, and then Friday I did go to my primary care doctor. I was thinking I might want to get a CAT scan, but I didn't. You have to, when you get Medicare, you got certain things you got to do to get an approval of a procedure. So I had to get a KUB X-ray of my abdomen and get some blood work, and if anything showed up positive, then it qualified me to get a CT. So I still haven't done that yet. But I am significantly better. I started getting better. By Friday, I was probably 40% better, and my doctor reassured me, saying, yeah, you're doing the right thing. I'm glad you did not go to the hospital. You can treat this the way you're doing it, and just keep going the way you are. And I said, at first I asked her, I said, well, never mind. I don't want any pain meds, and I don't think there's any kind of bacterial issue that I need to worry about. So I think I'm good. So I just continued to fast. And she said, go ahead and start eating, later. And I did. We had a first meal together with my son and my wife on Friday night. Saturday, I met with my friend, Elmo Leaps, who I played rugby with. Shout out to Elmo. He was our team captain back at the United States Merchant Marine Academy. That's why I hurt my neck initially. Ultimately became a chiropractor as a result of that. Elmo and I were both in the engineering program, both worked on ships in the engine room. He was, in 1981, I was in chiropractic college, and our rugby team was up at Hilton Head playing a tournament, and Elmo was living on a ship in Jacksonville, Florida, in a shipyard. They were retrofitting some equipment, and he was there. And he had been playing rugby with the Jacksonville Rugby Club. So they're coming up for the tournament. So I run into Elmo. I hadn't seen him since 1978 when we graduated. So 3 years had passed, and then we're having a reunion out on the field. Jacksonville ended up winning the tournament, put us out, our team out. And but anyway, it was good to see him. But I hadn't seen him since 1981. That's like a long time. How many years is that? That's like 41 years.
39 years.
41 years. Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, so Elmo and I get together and we go out to eat lunch. And at this time I had started this vegan concept. Elmo introduced it to me, and he was telling me how much better he did with some heart blockages. And I thought, if he reduces, he went from a 75% heart blockage to a 25% heart blockage in a few months on this vegan diet. And I thought, that sounds like something I need to be doing with my pancreatitis. I need to reduce the inflammation levels, and it can't hurt, can't hurt. So I thought, well, I think I'll make a commitment to do that. Now I love meat, steaks, and so it's not, it's not like, for me, it's not like, some people are animal cruelty concepts and vegan that way, but that's not me. I'm looking at it from a health standpoint. Now, a lot of my friends that are Seventh-day Adventists, they're total vegan, and they preach eating that way. That's more of what we would call a Daniel diet, biblically, water, fruits and vegetables. Basically, that's what they ate. That's what Daniel ate. And he proved to the I don't want to call him the king, I guess he proved to the king that his way of eating was better, and he had more energy and more vitality, and he had a happier countenance. And so the king was, okay, you can eat your food, that's fine. So that was proven back in the Old Testament 4,000 years ago. So I thought, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit for a while, and I can tell a definitive difference in just a couple of days. So I wanted to talk briefly about what vegan is. It means different things to different people, so I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about, the term. Vegan and vegetarian diets both exclude meat and seafood. Vegan diets go a step further by also mixing every other food of animal origin. So in addition to avoiding meat, vegans steer clear of dairy products, eggs, and honey. Additionally, vegan foods never contain any byproducts or animal agricultural like lard, whey, or gelatin. So a vegan diet delivers powerful advantages over a vegetarian diet. Eating vegetarian merely reduces farm animal exploitation, whereas the vegan diet eliminates every last bit of it. So most vegans are conceptually against animal exploitation. That's not me. I'm looking at it from a health standpoint and from a vitality standpoint and reducing inflammation. So with pancreatitis, basically that's inflammation of the pancreas, and I can assure you I can feel a significant difference, not only in my pancreas, but even my old deteriorated joints that I've had from playing rugby back in the day. They're moving better and feeling better, so I have more energy and vitality in just the 2 days I've been doing it. So this, to me, is a good, very good thing. I'm excited about it, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. Becoming a vegan, it takes very little effort. Honestly, that comes from a website. It's not really true. When I go shopping, I went shopping at Publix the other day. I thought, well, maybe Publix has got good options and choices. They'd probably have some vegan, and they did. They did have a lot of good vegan options, but you still had to search and look at what you were purchasing. You couldn't just go and go around and just buy everything. So I bought a lot of quinoa and some of the things that I would mix with that. I found a recipe online that Suzanne Summers used to eat with this quinoa salad she made. I thought, well, she's pretty good looking, and maybe I'll duplicate that and I'll be good looking too. And so I mixed that up with, I added a couple of things. She takes the quinoa and chops some onions and puts cucumbers in it, and then salt and pepper, and then olive oil, and mixes it all together. And I added a little bit of kind of like a more of a vinegar taste to it, because I like vinegar with my cucumbers. And then I added also something that's not strict vegan, and I put a little bit of ricotta cheese in it. Not ricotta, what's that, the chunky stuff, what's that? Feta cheese, yeah. Just a tad of feta cheese in there. And then I added some walnuts, and it was really good. And then I mixed that with a dark green leafy vegetable salad, and that's been kind of what I've eaten for the last couple of days. I had a bowl of that. So it hadn't been the cheapest, but it's not been the most expensive. Meat, as you know, has gone crazy high. So I'm not missing out on anything by not eating that stuff. Saving a little bit of money, but you still have to shop and find what you're looking for. I did find a few frozen items in the frozen sections that had, good protein, low calorie, low salt. It was good. It was good quality foods, but you have to learn to read labels. And fortunately, I spent a lot of time learning a lot of this stuff, so I'm able to do that. What I may do one of these days is shop online and say, you want to go shopping with me, and we'll go shopping for things. Let me tell you what I have found generally as a rule is that if you shop the perimeter of the grocery store and stay out of the middle, maybe do some of the frozen stuff, but stay away from the canned stuff, the box stuff, anything with preservatives and chemicals in it. 99% of the time you're going to be better off. You start over like most every store, like depends on the layout, but most every store as you go in, to the right's your vegetables, and then I kind of skip past the meats and cheeses and jumped right over into, I did get a very deep whole grain bread, doesn't have low gluten, and so I did that, and so that was a good thing. Most of the time, and my friend Elmo, he's not afraid to have a beer once in a while, and so good news, vegan and beer is okay too. So it's a vegan. So also certain brands of chocolate, like the darker chocolates, those are pretty.
I remember you
good.
mentioning about dark chocolate being good.
Yeah, and so I did find some pre-frozen veggie sticks and some vegetable spring rolls that I heated up last night. They were good. I'd had a salad for lunch and I ate that stuff for supper with just a small handful of nuts. So that worked out pretty good too. I also bought some tahini sauce and some hummus, and I mixed that with some of these really crackers. It would be dry if you didn't put something on it, but it was pretty good as well. So that worked out really well for me. I believe that I'm going to have no problem sticking with this, and I feel like if it's good enough for Daniel in the Bible, then it's more than good enough for me. And I can honestly say my energy level and I can sense the inflammation reducing as a result of the freedom of movement and the lack of stiffness that I've had up building over the last few weeks and months, and I can tell a definitive difference. It's kind of like, you ever felt achy after, knowing when the rain was coming? Okay, that has a lot to do with an inflammatory cycle of tension that builds up as a result of that stress. And I had that seemingly all the time. My ankles were swelling. I'd get up in the morning, I'd be stiff. Now I'm like bouncing out of bed and walking across the floor, not stumbling. And it's like I'm 66. I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm fairly healthy, and don't take any medications. And so I feel really good about this concept. And I just wanted to give a shout out and tell my buddy Elmo, thank you for turning me on to the concept. And so, he lost his arterial blockage. He had been having some cardiac issues, and it went from 75% blockage down to 25% blockage with this vegan diet. So that's pretty amazing. So I think it would not hurt anybody to learn how to eat better and to make better food choices. We talk about different kinds of stresses and conditions and problems. We've talked about longevity, living healthy to 100. I believe God's got a plan for us to live way longer than we normally get. I was showing you that little lifespan up and down cycle of vitality. I don't think that we have to get sick before we die. I know it happens. I know it's common. And I know a lot of people would absolutely disagree with me, saying we're all going to get sick and die someday. And I said, I know if Jesus doesn't come back, I know we're all going to die someday. But do you have to get sick and die? Or do you have to get sick before you die? Can't you be healthy and then fall asleep and then wake up in the arms of the Lord? Lord, I put my request in already for that. That's what I'm looking for. So I believe that that's theoretically feasible. Okay? Does it happen all the time? No. Most of the time you get old and decrepit and you can't find a place in a nursing home. You have to have somebody take care of you, feed you, wipe your tail. It's like horrible to think about being old and decrepit, not having your mental faculties. It happens to a lot of people. Lord help, it's happening to our president right now. It's sad and tragic, but it does happen. So if we learn how to eat a lower inflammatory food with more antioxidants and better energy for the brain function, then we would all live healthier. So I wanted to what time is it now?
It's 6:47 right now.
Okay, so I got a little time. I wanted to kind of go into a sciatica and discuss that. I had a young lady come in today, 16 years old, been having chronic reoccurring back pain, radiating down into both of her legs. Bilateral sciatica. That's a significant problem. Anybody that has local pain has a problem, but anybody that has radiating pain has a higher gradient of problem. We look at phases of damage having to do with instability of the spine and structure, and that when we see somebody with local and radicular pain radiating down into either your arms or hands or legs and feet, then it becomes a much higher category of injury. There's like 5. A 1 or a 2 would be local, a 3 or a 4 is radiating. A difference between a 3 and a 4 is measurable nerve damage that you can send somebody and have neurological testing and measure the damage. That puts you up at a 3, and then it can be exquisitely worse than that at a 5. Most people end up in an emergency room if they're well, sometimes they end up in an emergency room if they're a 1, but it just depends on your pain tolerance and your ability to kind of tough it out. But most 5s are like really significant problems that, we see people sometimes, I've had a few 5s that have come in here that couldn't walk. I met up with a guy the other night named Chris, who came into my office, and we had to go out in a wheelchair and pick him up out of his car, and we worked on him, and then we had to carry him back out of that office in a wheelchair. And he hadn't been able to work for like a couple of days, but by his 3rd visit, he was back working full time with no pain. So he was a 5. I had another young lady who came in, and I looked at her MRI, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the biggest disc protrusion that I've ever seen. It was occluding her spinal cord canal was like, let's say it's this big, and that much of it was from a disc herniation. So it was like, there wasn't nothing left other than the fact that it was, she was barely able to walk. And so we put a support belt on. And actually I found, you and I talked about this neck contour shifting forward. I said, if we can help you at all, we've got to fix your curve in your neck so you're standing up more erect. And if we can do that, and if you still have to have surgery, I can assure you that you're not going to fall into the statistics that 75+% of the back surgeries don't get good results. So we end up, we want to basically effectively change the mechanics of the stress on the lower back and reduce the tension. And this little girl, basically, she had the same thing. Forward head posture, leaning down, the pelvis rocking forward, the disc pushing straight back into the nerve canal, posteriorly straight back into the center, which is why she had bilateral leg pain. Now, I didn't do an MRI, but we got pretty good quality x-ray images on her, and we could kind of see the shadow of the disc. Now, I don't like to say we can see a disc on an x-ray. You really need an MRI to get a better visual on that, but she's got definitive central nerve protrusion. And if she doesn't get better fairly quick, like I gave this other girl 6 visits. Okay, I'm gonna give you 6 visits. I put her in a back brace to support her spine. I gave her something to help with her neck curve and some homework to do. And I gave her 6 visits. I said, I'll work with you for 6 visits, and then we'll send you on up the scale to the neurosurgeon, because you're probably gonna have to back surgery as big as this disc herniation is. Well, she was willing to go that route, didn't want to think about surgery at that point, and so 6 visits later, she's walking pretty good. Pain is down probably 80%. So we've continued to work on her, and she's progressively get better. Interesting, now she's been trying to get pregnant, and now she's gotten pregnant. So I'm dealing with a pregnant lady with a monstrous disc herniation. So we're going to continue to work with her throughout her pregnancy to make sure her body mechanics keeps that stress off that disc. So when you have bilateral sciatica, basically there's some common symptoms of that. The sciatic nerve is a large nerve that comes out of the lower back, and it coalesces together with a couple of different levels, in L4, L5, S1, and they come together and form a large nerve. It's about as big, if not bigger, than the size of your thumb. It runs deep into the pelvis and out underneath your buttocks, underneath a muscle called the piriformis. And then it runs straight down the middle of the back of the leg, all the way down to the knee, where it splits and wraps around into the front and side of the leg. And so when you see somebody with that pain down their back of their leg and their buttocks, can become sometimes called sciatica. Sometimes people come in and they say, I got sciatica, but it's like, where's the pain? They say, well, it's running down the front of my thigh. And I said, well, that may be a part of the lumbar plexus, but it's not technically sciatica. So one of the most important things about helping anybody in our office is making an accurate diagnosis of the problem. So we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. And the worst thing imaginable in the treatment of back pain is treating the pain and not what's causing the pain. Treating the pain has led so many people into a life of addiction because the only route that you can go in treating pain is stronger and more medications. And then when they pull it off and you're not taking them any longer, they're not giving you the scripts, you self-medicate. And the closest thing to the opioids they give you is heroin. So there's a lot of people dying of heroin overdoses that are treated because they're being treated for back pain and not the dang problem. It really aggravates the stew out of me knowing that there's so many people out there that they do not have a good strategy of evaluation and management. They're treating pain and not the problem. The pain becomes what they treat and not the problem that's causing the pain. That's what really is a problem. That's the problem. So if you have that and the doctor says, here, let me give you this pain pill, and they're not helping you, they're not fixing anything with just a pain pill. So that's what is frustrating. So this little girl was smart enough to have some connections that knew me, and they sent me a Facebook message this morning and said, can you see her? And I'm like, yeah, send her on. And she felt better in her upper back when I finished with her. Her lower back and legs were still hurting. Doesn't surprise me. She's got a pretty significant disc issue. If she's not a good bit better by 6 visits, we're going to have to find out how we can get her an MRI, just to see what else we're dealing with. So we have a strategy on treating sciatica that's very logical, very algorithmic and flow, meaning that, an algorithm is kind of like, if this, then you do that, and if not, then you do this. So it's kind of like a process management of the problem. So we figure out what the problem is and we start working through the cycle. So if you're better, you do this. If you're better, then we keep going. If you're not better, then we do this. That's the algorithm. And there's multiple steps of evaluation with more progressive intervention with sciatica as we continue to work with the patient over time. So, but it's critical to get the accurate diagnosis. Sometimes sciatica shares symptoms with arthritis. So sometimes you can have something called stenosis of the canal, where you have old arthritis and degenerative changes, and you've had an old back injury and it's just kind of closed up, and now there's no space. That can also duplicate sciatica, but it not, sciatica is just a term that basically means that sciatic nerve is inflamed. There's still got to be a reason for it. There's always a cause. The problem is with sciatica, I have an international sciatic pain relief group that I started a few years ago. We've got almost 1,000 members in that group, and it's worldwide, and people are constantly complaining about not having a doctor that knows how to treat them. It's a really horrible problem. I've got a couple of physical therapy friends, and I know some chiropractors that are really pretty good at it, but it really has a lot to do with muscular imbalance and bad posture and the mechanics of loading on the joint that typically affects the disc that now creates the sciatica. So whatever is required to reduce the inflammation off the nerve first is the first big step. How do you reduce the inflammation? Once you've got the inflammation beginning to go away, and sometimes I called one of my patients came in, I know he's got a disc herniation. We treated him before. He did well, but he didn't make progress, so we sent him for an epidural. My mistake was I wanted him to continue to work with me afterwards, and he got so much better, he just quit coming until it got worse again, and then he comes back, and now we're cycling back through this thing. So I know what he's got, basically, but this time instead of sending for an epidural right away, we're going to try an oral steroid first. So I called his doctor's office and said, he's going to come down there. I've got something in writing for you. Please work with us on doing this. If he's not a good bit better, we may get an updated MRI. We're definitely going to do an epidural if he's not progressing, but that's the algorithm, okay? So we know we should be able to help him. So the problem with sciatica is the fact that it's kind of an evasive condition that is related to the pain on the nerve, but you still have to really go in there and find out the details of why it's there in the first place. That's how you treat sciatica. You gotta go in and find the cause. Many times it's a combination of muscle imbalances, bad position and mobility, disc pressure, so there's multiple issues that has to be addressed. It's not a simple thing, but the first step, get the inflammation down, you'll begin to feel better, but that's not the solution, that's not the end solution, it's the beginning. So don't get fooled into thinking that just because you feel a little bit better, that everything's fine and everything's gone, because it doesn't mean that. It means that we've got the first step out of the way. You still got to get up. Now, I use this analogy like living over here with this type of problem is bad, and we want you to move over here where it's good. So it's kind of like you have to, it's like if you can imagine a line with a water source and then another line with a new land over here, we got to create a bridge. And you got to get on the bridge, across the bridge, and off the bridge, and you got to figure out how you're going to stay over there in a good place before something else happens. So, this is Dr. David Wade. I think my time is up, right? Is that pretty much
About
close?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. If you have any questions, you can post them on Facebook or email us at our office or through our website. Do you have any questions? Maybe I've done a good job. Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. So time's up. We're going to finish and knock it out for tonight. I'll see y'all next week.
Y'all be sure to hit that like, comment, subscribe, and hit that follow button. Y'all have a good evening.
Like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you hanging with me.
A tad stressful, huh?
What's that? Yeah. We didn't get, I wanted,